Good morning. What a great day to be in downtown Little Rock. I don't know about you guys, but I would gladly trade a little bit of rain for a 112-degree heat index day in the middle of Arkansas. So here we are. My name's Gabe Holmstrom. I'm with the Downtown Little Rock Partnership, and it is indeed a great day to be in downtown Little Rock. Lots of discussions about the urban cores and the downtowns of not only Little Rock, but of cities all across this country are happening right now. And where we are as a city with things that we have on the horizon, just on the steps of the opening of the recent Museum of Fine Arts. There are multiple announcements that have happened in recent months about the future of our great city and the future of our downtown. And today we're going to hear yet one more. And this one is, I think, Rex Nelson. I saw Rex around here. He has talked about this time and time again, about this project being pivotal to the success of downtown Little Rock. So with that, I'd like to introduce Attorney General Tim Griffin to come up.
Thank you all. Well, this has been a journey. I won't need much volume. Trust me, I'm excited. This has been a long journey. So before I was sworn in as AG, we started having meetings internally in the transition and even before that about the office space. I always like to create a culture in the office, a culture that's positive, a culture that relies on collaboration and communication, cooperation, and part of that depends upon the physical structure that you're in. If you have an abundance of walls, it's harder to interact. And so we were thinking about where we wanted to be down the road. And we started looking at the numbers, and I said to myself, hey, we're paying all this rent. As far as I know, the AG's office is not going away anytime soon. We ought to be looking to own, if possible, and save that rent money. That's just what any individual or business would do. And so we embarked upon this journey of thinking about our options. We looked at just renting in a different space. We looked at building a new space. We crunched the numbers. And one of the things I said is, look, whatever we do, I've got to be able to tell taxpayers that we're doing it for less. And that's hard when you're in a lease that's below the market generally. So we looked at reducing our footprint. We looked at all the different options, and we just weren't there yet. And one day I drove right over here. And I think we were just driving around town looking for options. I looked up, this was after I was AG. We had been talking with different people, and I said, why don't we buy that building? That's an awesome building with an incredible history. I started counting the floors. I started sort of figuring on napkin what the square footage would be. And so I said, I'm going to call Jimmy Moses. Now, I don't think we had but maybe a conversation or two. He wrote a UALR op-ed a long time ago, and I picked up the phone and called him and said, hey, I want to help. That was the first time I'd ever talked with him. So I called him up, and we started meeting, and a bunch of his people have been so incredibly helpful. Jimmy, obviously, Chris, George Friedman, and Cam. Where's Cam? Cam over here, and others have worked with us, and we've sort of thought through different scenarios, and ultimately we landed right where we ought to be, which is purchasing, down the road purchasing, but immediately moving and leasing for 5 years with an option to buy the Boyle building. And it's the size that we need. It will allow for restaurant and what I would like to have sort of a Rome-style coffee bar where I go down there and get some espresso and my energy level gets low. A restaurant that will stay open at least the hours of Samantha's, so it is part of a night scene as well. First class, all new inside, a more collaborative, cooperative, physical structure. And here's the deal. We're going to be able to do this, renting for 5 years and then an option to buy after the 5 years have expired at a set price. And here's the deal. We will save on day one on rent from where we are. And then when we buy it, we will save the state millions over time. You may not know this, but the AG's office has rented for decades and paid out over $30 million in rent. No individual with a constitutional permanent office would do that. And certainly no business would do that. And so this makes good fiscal sense for the state, for the taxpayers. It's going to give our workers, the folks at the AG's office who are awesome, who are doing incredible work day in and day out, it's going to give us the space we need to have the professionalism and the training and all those other things that we need to best represent the state of Arkansas. And also, it's an incredible win on so many other fronts. It's fiscally incredible. It's a win there. I've said that. But here are the other ways it helps. From an economic development standpoint, I've been driving by that eyesore for a long time, and it's bugged me every time. It's going to be beautiful. And we're already talking about what's next. What comes next in this community? And we're going to fix that clock. This ain't Back to the Future, and we're not letting it stay at the same time for decades. We're fixing that clock. And we've only just begun. Whether it's just me cheerleading, putting people together, whatever, we're going to have a massive impact down here. So from an economic development standpoint, it's going to be wonderful. If from an environmental sustainability standpoint, we're not building a new building. We're repurposing a gorgeous building designed by Mr. Mann, one of the great architects who designed the Capitol, who designed the Gazette building. If you're interested in history, you ought to be applauding this as well. Let me tell you something. If we weren't doing what we're doing in this building, you may see that block gone at some point. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So this is a win for everybody. And we've got so many people to thank. I want to tell you that the governor can't be here, but I want to thank her. She had to go to appointment with her son, so she couldn't be here. But she has given us her full blessing. She says this is exactly the sort of thing that we ought to be doing. And we will get the press, our quote, it'll be in our press release. Senator Dismain, who's going to talk here in a minute, Chairman, Joint Budget, and Chairman Lane Jean is here. Lane, thank you for being here. They understand numbers better than anybody, and therefore I want to thank them. I want to thank all the legislators that are here. Senator Ben Gilmore, saw Howard Beatty over here, Representative David Ray, Senator Clark Tucker, this is his district, Representative McCullough, this is her district. Do we have any legislators I missed? Okay. So this is a team effort. I mean, Gabe, I've been talking with Gabe about this, I don't know how long. Probably had more conversations with Gabe than we've had in our lives because of this. Certainly the case with you, Jimmy. And so just thank you to everybody. Thank you to the folks at the AG's office who, when I told them we're getting the heck out of the building, after they looked at me crazy, like I was crazy, they said, okay, we'll see where this guy, we have no idea what this guy's going to do, but you gave me the benefit of the doubt, and I want to thank you for that. We got a lot of stuff to do ahead, but I promise my energy level won't wane throughout that. This is a wonderful, wonderful deal. And I'll just say this. As goes our capital city, so goes our state. If you want to know what people think about Arkansas reputationally, the capital city plays a big role in that. Even if you live in places like Magnolia, where I grew up, or Camden, where my wife grew up. What's happening in your capital city heavily influences what businesses and individuals and the workforce and other people out of state think about this state. This is all of our capital city, and this will serve Arkansans for generations to come. Thank y'all so much for being here, and Gabe is going to run us through the other speakers. God bless y'all. Appreciate you.
Indeed, an exciting day downtown. So up next, I'd like to get Jimmy Moses with Moses Tucker, and then Scott Kuth with EPH to come up here.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Gabe. Before I get into my remarks, I want to make a personal aside, an irony, if you will. I always say that personally and in our company, the DNA of downtown Little Rock exists. We've been about that for over 40 years and have been blessed to be involved in some of the great changes that have happened in a positive fashion downtown. However, what I want you to know is we are standing in what used to be my dad's store, Moses Melody Shop. We weren't scheduled to be here today, only if it rained, but perhaps somebody saw through all that, and so we stand in a place I'm quite familiar with. But more importantly, Tim alluded to this, but I got a phone call a little over a year ago. Picked up the phone, dollar, no name, and I heard this excited guy on the other end. And I'm going, who in the world is this? He sounds like me, talking rapidly about his vision for changing and transforming Main Street, Capitol Avenue, and all of downtown. And finally, when he took a breath, he said, oh, by the way, this is Tim Griffin. And I said, gosh, Tim, I love what you're saying, and I'm all about it, and we want to work with you. If you fast forward 12 short months, we're here today. And after lots of work and an absolute uncommitting and non-wavering commitment to this project by Tim Griffin, we're announcing a $35 million renovation of one of Little Rock's landmark historic structures, the Boyle Building. And we at our company, Moses Tucker, are extremely proud to be involved and be the developer and short-term owner, if you will, until the state is ready to purchase. We've done a lot of projects in our city over the years, and each one becomes a member of my family. And when I drive around and look at our city, I'm so proud of the good things that have happened and the people that make them happen. But as I said to Tim and his staff, the ideas that we may have as developers lie dormant until somebody with the energy, the active mind, and the commitment steps up and joins. And that's what's happened here with the Attorney General, his staff, and the state of Arkansas in general. So it is a very exciting day for us, and we're thrilled to be a part of it. There are a lot of people that deserve credit. I want to single out a few, and if I miss you, I apologize. The management team that works with Tim directly has been incredible. Carl Vogelpool, Bob Brooks, and particularly Robbie Riggs. They are remarkable and have been committed and accessible and wonderful, wonderful to work with. If I didn't say Nick Forrest's name, I don't know if Nick has made it. He has made it. Nick, welcome. We are so fortunate to have EPH and Nick's firm. They have adopted Little Rock. They've invested quietly millions of dollars in buying up property in and around downtown. And when this project came up, Nick and his team said absolutely buy, and our team went to work to join with them to make this all happen. So Nick, thank you for all you're doing. I'd like to recognize our architects, District Design, led by Michael McCullum, and my son, Jamie Moses, who are fiercely working on plans so that we can start construction here in about 30 days or less. And then I also want to make sure I mention Todd Henson, who's the president of Central Construction Company. They'll be the contractor doing this building, and we're delighted to have them. In addition to that group, there's another quieter group that we're indebted to as a company that I want to single out, and that's what I call the City Hall crew, if you will. They're led by Mayor Scott, who's here today, Bruce Moore. I don't know if Bruce is here, but Bruce is here. Bruce Moore, two good friends who quietly have helped us, supported us, and been heavily involved in helping make this and other projects happen downtown. So their leadership should be recognized, and it's greatly appreciated to both. And then finally, at City Hall, a guy that spends somewhere around half his time there and the other half trying to make people healthy is a dear friend of mine, City Director Dean Compuris, who made it here today. Without Dean Compuris, what we do as a company probably would never have happened. For over 30 years, we've worked together, he on the private or the public side and me on the private, to take on redeveloping our city. And Dean, I can't thank you enough for all you do and how you do it quietly, and the effect it's had is remarkable. So we're grateful. I'd like to close by saying that I hope within the next 12 months, as Little Rock embarks on its first downtown planning effort in my lifetime by one of the nationally recognized top firms in the country, Sasaki, that there'll be a plan in place to convert Capitol Avenue into a magnificent thoroughfare that will link the state capitol and state government with the business district. It's there for the offing. It needs to happen. And I think the Boyle Building redevelopment will kick this off, and we will see absolutely phenomenal things happen. And I think in a few short years, like 5 or less, you'll begin to see buildings emerge along Capitol Avenue, I hope occupied by both public and private sector firms, in a boulevard that everyone that lives in the state of Arkansas will come to Little Rock and proudly say, that's something that we believe in and are delighted to see. With people like Tim Griffin and my son Chris Moses, who has led our effort valiantly, he should be here speaking, but he defers to Dad, and I'm grateful for that. But he does all the work, and his development team. These things simply wouldn't happen, but they do, and they are, and it's a great day for downtown Little Rock. Thank you.
I think Jimmy and I should have compared notes because he pretty much hit on everything I was going to talk about. So I'll keep this short. I've got some of my team here with me. We're spread out from South Carolina, South Dakota, Colorado, and California. And Little Rock's one of the cities that we've kind of researched and we've been involved in investing the past few years. And like Jimmy said, there's a lot of good activity, a lot of positive momentum with the city. We're excited to be a part of everything that's happening with Chris and Jimmy, and excited to continue our investment into the city. Happy to see all of you guys out here today, and again, want to keep it short and sweet and turn it back over. So thank you guys.
I knew I was going to get in trouble. Ann Laidlaw, you've been a rock star. Thank you so much. She's going to play a continuing amazing role, oversized role. She's always gives the best advice. And I hate to start with staff, but yes, Robbie, Carl, Bob, Zach, and many others. But Robbie, this is Robbie's project. I mean, Robbie Riggs has been a rock star. We stole her from the Qualibon firm. She has a CPA and she was a real estate attorney. Perfect timing. Thank you.
All right, so at this time, I'd like to get State Senator Jonathan Dismayne to come up and say a few words.
Let's back up real quick. You said something about a coffee bar and espressos. And I don't know if that makes me nervous or excited. But that's right. Well, I really want to thank my colleagues in the legislature for being willing to fund the major historic tax program here in the state. We've talked about the Boyle building for a long time. I think there's been lots of ups and downs and lots of news stories about things that were going to happen that never happened. I'm excited that today, and I don't think it's any coincidence, that we provided the funding and the commitment in the state for the major historic tax credit, and now we're able to commence construction, remodeling, and actually going to create something of tremendous value, I think, again, not just for the people of Central Arkansas or Little Rock, but the state as a whole. As General Griffin, General Griffin had said, I think what happens in Little Rock is just critical for us in the rest of the state. I mean, whether you're in Searcy like me, where you got Harding University and parents, that are coming in from out of the state that want to see what we have to offer in the capital city. I think this, again, is just something that people want to see, something that we believe in and that we really, really are proud of. But really quick, I also think it's important to note really the commitment that Gabe has had to this. There is no one that's worked harder in regards to the tax credit program here in the state and really seeing it through. I think we've talked about this now for 6 years, probably 3 sessions, and again, proud of my colleagues in the governor's office for wanting to make this become a reality. One thing I would encourage anyone to do is talk to the Department of Heritage, look into our historic tax credit programs that we have, not just for the major projects, but for those that are smaller. I would love to see this replicated through the state. That is the intent and something that I hope that people will do. Again, thank you very much.
No, and I guess I want to thank Senator Dismayne for continuing to answer my calls and listen to these ideas and read my emails of what I send from other states about their programs. And to further make your point there in general, just in case, so after the Boyle building gets done, there's only going to be one tower left on Main Street in need, so it's a block and a half away. I'm happy to work with George and get anybody a tour who wants to go check it out. But before we do that, Mayor Scott, would you come up and say a few words?
Attorney General Griffin, a man once told me to always share that true leadership recognizes leadership. And we stand here today, not only the state's capital city, but downtown Little Rock. It's no secret that we've had a donut in downtown Little Rock that has not been filled for decades. We stand here today, a true example of a public-private partnership between the Attorney General, a historic development firm that's been developing downtown Little Rock since I've been a kid. That transformed an industrial area to the river market, and now we have the opportunity to truly transform Main Street and Capitol Avenue. This public-private partnership started with the leadership of Attorney General Griffin. I recognize that leadership because we are at a time here in the city of Little Rock that we are all focusing on how do we unite, grow, and transform. This is a demonstration of unity through his leadership. Through that leadership, you will see downtown continue to grow because investment begets investment. Innovation begets innovation. And most of all, it only works if you're being intentional. That's what's happening today. This is a big day in the state's capital city because, as Gabe has already shared, there's been a lot of work being done between our administration and city board of directors who are here today, City Director Dean Campiris and City Director Virgil Miller and Manager Moore. We have this conversion of a downtown master plan. Because of Attorney General Griffin's leadership, we've already solved a major problem in the master plan. We don't have to worry about what do we do with the Boyle building right now, which gives us the opportunity to focus on other things. We also have the Downtown Ambassadors Program that's coming. We're going to be continuing to focus on more efforts because of the leadership of Gabe. But again, it's about investment, it's about innovation and intentionality. And it's because of your leadership, and I share my appreciation to you.
Thank you, Mayor, and I believe we have time if anybody has any questions, and I can get everybody to join.
We are looking at the fall of next year. Our lease ends, our current lease ends a little before that, but I've already requested that we have a little flexibility on month to month after that. So we don't know exactly, but we're looking at October-ish. And we'll be pushing, obviously, throughout, maintaining the quality at a deliberate speed. So, but it ain't going to be long. We already have internally a moving committee, not a building committee, because we know where we're going. We have a moving committee, and we have a lieutenant colonel over here, Johnson, who works for me. He's a retired lieutenant colonel, but he's a logistics guy. And so we have we have a plan that we are executing internally, and we're gonna take as few things as possible over. We get rid of a bunch of furniture that really shouldn't exist, and a lot of other stuff, and we are going to be efficient with it. But we're going to be ready as soon as Jimmy says go. Yes, sir.
How many floors will you be occupying? How many personnel will be working there?
Yeah, so we have approximately 150, 160 in the AG's office. We've got some vacancies now, but we've filled most of our vacancies, including 2 from the Quattlebaum firm and 1 for the Friday firm. So that will fluctuate a little bit, but not much. We plan to have about 10 of the total floors. My vision is to have just an amazing restaurant downstairs, taking up most of the first floor. One that will be an extraordinary restaurant. I'm approaching some of our best restaurateurs, or I already have. We want it to be really, really excellent. And it needs to serve both lunch and dinner the way Samantha's does. I've talked to Chris. It's going to help him more foot traffic, et cetera. We've got a lot of workers down at DHS, et cetera. Also want to have on the first floor this coffee bar that we talked about that maybe will serve a light lunch. That's the vision for that. There'll also be a reception on the first floor. You'll enter the AG's office reception off of Capitol. You can see that door there if you go over and look today. That door is extant. It's there. We will have another floor that we plan to rent entirely to law enforcement, let's just say law enforcement, judicial related tenants. We have those people in mind. We're in conversations with them. There are a lot to choose from, but we feel like that will be relatively easy to fill those. So we'll have about 10, which will include moot court room to practice in. It'll include a big meeting area. We have a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of people come to the AG's office now to use our big meeting room on the second floor. What was you got to follow up?
Yeah, also the expenditures from the general's office, how much in rent and
Sure, we'll get you those numbers. So we crunch the numbers on, so there's two aspects to that. You have the 5-year rent, okay, and then in the 6-year, because of the historic tax credits, we have an option to buy. So let's talk about the rent first. So one of the good things, because we are not renting just a portion, we're renting the whole building, we save, and Barry Hyde is for this project, but we do save $90,000 in property taxes that would go to Barry Hyde. I did not tell him that before he committed to loving this project, but so we're going to save $90,000 a year in property taxes because we're renting the whole building, which is tantamount to ownership, a public building, which makes it a public building. Then we own it, we won't pay those, obviously. So there's savings there. We also have other savings because of the income, the revenue that we will get from renting 2 floors. We estimate that will bring us slightly under the rent we pay now. We can get you the specifics. Robbie's a CPA, and I trust her on all that, but we do have that. So during the rental period, we will be right at or just below where we currently are. That's the savings. When we own it, that speaks for itself. We will no longer pay rent. We won't even pay rent as an intergovernmental transfer. We will pay an operating fee to Ann Laidlaw's people, and they do a fabulous job at a rock bottom price. We will have massive savings there as well. Does that give you enough? Yeah, and you can always.
really obnoxious answer to your question from Mr. Tucker the last one. Second, the mayor or someone else from the downtown partnership has any sense of what 100 plus more workers downtown is going to do for downtown. I'm interested in a conversation about that.
I mean, anytime you have more people downtown, that's a good thing. That's more sales tax dollars. That's more opportunity for individuals to decide to live downtown as well. Gabe has been doing a phenomenal job alongside the Downtown Little Rock Partnership. And what we're doing to ensure that everyone understands that downtown is everyone's neighborhood in the city of Little Rock, but most importantly, that downtown is the state's neighborhood. And so to have that influx of more people downtown is a good thing.
Gabe, can somebody get some more history of the oil building? I don't know if you or somebody or who knows more about that building and what it originally was.
Well, I don't know if we can coax Joel Ledbetter, who owned this building for many years, and nobody better to talk a little bit about the history. Joel?
I'll hold it.
In the first place, it's a wonderful day for downtown Little Rock, and that Moses Tucker and the Attorney General's office is going to take over the entire building. And what a better developer you could have than Moses Tucker. They've done some fabulous things. But the history is kind of unique. And the State Bank building actually built the Boyle building. And they signed a 99-year lease with the Brack family who owned the land. And in 2016, the bank went into receivership. And my step-grandfather, Johnny Boyle, bought the Boyle building for $450,000. I think he paid $250,000 in cash, which was a lot of money in 1916. But then in 1960, we were lucky enough, I'm skipping way ahead here, but lucky enough to rent to M.M. Combs the first five floors. They knocked down our walls and incorporated their floors into our first five floors. That lease was a 40-year lease, and the wonderful thing for us was that Mr. Dillard bought Pfeiffer's in 1962, and the downtown merchants came to him after that purchase or before that purchase and asked him to sign this agreement, because most of the merchants in downtown Little Rock had signed an agreement that they would stay in downtown Little Rock and force really all of their customers to come to Little Rock to shop. Mr. Dillard would not do that. He would not sign that agreement and move west, which he said he was moving west to Park Plaza. He did lease both ends of Park Plaza so that they couldn't have competition in the same mall. But anyway, that was what occurred, but was very lucky for us that occurred two years after we had signed the 40-year lease with M.M. Combs. After that, there were a lot of things that went on. This $14 million beautiful construction of this area that went through the Fifth and Main to went to 6th and Main, with a beautiful development, and it still is. But when they got in some financial trouble years later, it was sold. The $14 million project here was sold to the state, I believe, for $2.5 million. The Lafayette was sold years later for $600,000. In 1985, we had a split up with our Hall family that owned a portion of the Boyle building, and the Ledbetter family. We had a split up and had a joint appraisal. Had Bill Payne that represented us, and Cotton Barnes who represented the Halls. They came up with a joint appraisal of the evaluation of the Boyle building, which was $3.8 million, and that was 1985. Well, then this building, as I said, $14 million, sold for $2.4 million. And the Lafayette was sold for, I think, after John Bretman put $8 million in Metro Center bonds to remodel that. It was sold for $1.2 million. So after the other building downtown here, the Donaghy building, sold for $600,000. There wasn't any way that we were going to get $3.8 million when we sold the Boyle building. We ended up selling it to a California farm for $600,000, and they came in here and had a pretty good development plan. They had purchased everything in that block except the Atkins building that kind of ran diagonally next to our building. But I don't know what happened. They remodeled the Lafayette and couldn't get some building materials and things like that. So they eventually sold to someone else. But I heard, and I can't remember, maybe Jimmy can back me up on this. I don't know what it was eventually sold for to the Patels. I think it was 3.8 million, but I'm not, or something to that effect. And they came in there and tore everything out of there, as far as I know. They completely gutted it, and then did not do anything further with it. That's about all the history I'm going to go into.
All right, well, thanks again for everybody coming out and taking the time this morning, and everybody will be up here if you have additional questions. So thanks again for coming.
We don't have any dirt. It's out there somewhere, but the building's already there. But we do have some nice looking shovels and hats. So we'll probably gather for a big picture up here. Is that what you want to do? Okay. All right.